Before we get started, you all know the feeling. You open your car door up after getting back from the store and you're overcome with the heat coming from inside. That's why I got to give our friends at South Georgia Window Tinting a call. SGA is the premier provider of window tinting in South Georgia. They can provide any kind of tint on any kind of car, guaranteed. Give them a call at 229-2515-811. Again, that's 229-2515-811 and suffer no more. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Primary Politics Podcast. I'm Hunt Wasden, and I'm joined today by the co-host, John Manos. It's the first episode ever. We're going to be talking about a bunch of different stuff. John, you want to say hey?
Hey, how you doing? I'm John Manos. We got some Lindsey Graham for you. We got some Saudi Arabia for you. Here, it's a great place. What else do we have for them? I can't remember.
We have a whole lot of stuff. We're going to be talking about the midterm some, actually a lot. Going to be looking at some poll numbers. But we're going to start off with some breaking news out of Saudi Arabia. They killed the guy.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest with you. This doesn't come as a surprise to me.
No.
I didn't really. I mean, I wasn't an expert on it, but can you explain exactly?
Yeah. So, pretty much this reporter went into the Saudi consulate in Turkey to get a wedding license, and he got yerped. I mean, just his fiance waited outside. He didn't come back. I mean, and for a while, the Saudi Arabian government claimed that he left out of a back door.
Yeah, a traditionally trustworthy government.
Right, of course.
The course of history.
So this is their official statement. This is coming from the government. This was aired on Saudi state TV. It says, quote, "The Kingdom of Saudi Arabia expresses deep regret at the painful developments that have taken place in this case and affirms the commitment of the authorities in the kingdom to bring the facts to the attention of the public and to hold accountable all those involved. Saudi Arabia will seek justice by referring those responsible to the competent courts in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia." So too long didn't read there. Pretty much Saudi Arabia says we don't need journalists, we can do it ourselves, and that we're going to punish these guys ourselves, so nothing's going to happen.
Whatever that means. So what was the motive of this?
Right, so
was
the
he
journalist...
Turkish or was he Saudi?
The journalist, he was Saudi. He worked for the New York Times. He wrote a lot of pieces for them, and his actually most recent piece before he was yerped was one about how there's no freedom of the media in Arab countries.
I mean, he's not wrong.
Yeah. But he was a big critic of the Crown Prince there, which was just never a good move.
No.
And so, yeah, I mean, there was security camera footage of the hit team getting off a private jet in Turkey, and credit President Erdogan, who's the president, pretty much the king now of Turkey. He rewrote the constitution after the failed coup attempt. He's actually been very compliant with America on the investigation, and Turkish investigators searched the consulate today and ultimately figured out, what everyone knew. They yerped the guy. But the big thing going forward is kind of relations with America. Trump has promised earlier in the week that there's going to be swift punishment if this turns out to be true. I mean, obviously it's true. Saudi Arabia, is kind of like that stepchild that we tolerate just because we need them. I mean, they're such a strategic standpoint in the area.
They also have an economy that goes through the roof because of their oil, I think. I mean, they've just been sitting in the middle of conflict for the past 2,000 years. So they're more relevant than I would like them to be. So I think that's the issue with Saudi Arabia. Is it's like we almost have to deal with them.
Yeah, no.
If this were to happen in Thailand, I feel like we wouldn't care.
Yeah, it's definitely a necessary evil. It's going to be interesting to see how we deal with them moving forward. Donald Trump Jr., I believe, met with the Crown Prince. And so, it's kind of a mess. We're going to move on. Lindsey Graham.
Yeah, so I'm going to play the clip here. But basically what happened is, being from South Carolina, all the mustard barbecue people down there really weren't the biggest fan of Lindsey Graham. I would know. That's where I hail from. And there's so there's a lot of Republicans in the state, obviously, but they're not very moderate. If you're a Republican, you're a pretty far-right Republican. And I think the issue is Lindsey Graham has shown to waffle a little bit, kind of like John McCain. But over the most recent events with Kavanaugh, he he looked kind of conservative, wouldn't you say? I mean, he definitely.
I mean, came out of his shell big time. I mean, he's kind of been more of a non-confrontational guy.
But Flimsy Lindsey was a little more rigid.
He was very rigid. I mean, steel.
Yes.
It was absurd, and I think a lot of people are just kind of fed up with it. We'll play the clip now.
Yeah, go ahead and play that.
But absolutely ridiculous, absolutely riveting. Here's the clip.
I ran for president, and I got 1%. So I've had my time to be president. Didn't go very far, and I lost. I didn't think Trump would win. I ran out of adjectives to describe about how I felt about his campaign. Well, he won, and I lost, and he's president. And I'll try to help him where I can, say no when I must, and the election's over for me. I would like to tell him that you had a choice to make for the Supreme Court vacancy of Justice Kennedy. I think you did a good job, Mr. President. For somebody who's supposedly crazy and there's chaos everywhere, he did a good job here. Now, why difference between Gorsuch and Kennedy? Gorsuch and Kavanaugh. It's the Kennedy seat. If you don't get that, you're not paying much attention. Gorsuch is a even swap for Scalia. This is high-stakes stuff, right? This is the seat where the guy in the middle is at risk. Kavanaugh clerked for Justice Kennedy. Would you have picked him? No. But you lost the election. And that does have consequences. When I said it about Obama winning, I meant it. Merrick Garland. Scalia dies in the election year, the last year of the term of President Obama. The primaries are already underway. Not in 100 years has anybody been nominated under that circumstance, so I don't think I did anything unfair with Garland.
Right. So what Lindsey Graham refers to in the end there is when Justice Scalia died and Obama was still in office, there was a big push to nominate Obama's pick. It was an election year. The Republicans stalled. We had control of the Senate. We set the schedule. And so we didn't, we just never put it to a vote. We waited for the presidential election, hoping Trump would win, which was a long shot at the time, but proved correct.
Yeah.
And that's how we got Gorsuch. Now, that is one of Lindsey Graham's more tame moments in these past few weeks, but it kind of speaks to what he's talking to about, they lost. And
well, they acted like it was an obstruction of justice to stall the vote, but he made a point where that would have happened under any circumstance.
Right.
And it was more of a Republicans versus Democrat thing. It wasn't a justice thing.
Yeah.
And I think that's where his problem comes in. But him taking the side of Kavanaugh and taking the more conservative side is going to help him out in the long run. He's going to win the Senate race again, I think, for South Carolina.
And we're going to look at midterm polls very soon. But it helped a lot of senators, and it helped a lot of Senate hopefuls as well. So obviously, fallout from the Kavanaugh hearing. You have protests everywhere, especially in D.C. People banging on the 15,000-pound bronze doors of the Supreme Court, thinking they're going to break open.
Yeah, Kavanaugh, a lot of Kavanaughs.
A lot of Kavanaughs. Yeah. But I think it's important to realize, there's been a lot of talk about this protest. Conservatives are labeling it as mobs. The media's going against that pretty hard, actually. It kind of is odd to me. What do you think the infatuation with the word mob is? Why are the Republicans so gung-ho to label these groups as mobs, and why is the media so against people using the term?
Well, the mob does have a bad connotation, but I'll be honest with you, I kind of see where the label's coming from. In the past, when Republicans lose or when Republicans don't get the nomination they want, they go to the offices and they go to the papers. Democrats tend to take to the streets. So the more, I guess, white-collar Republicans are going to call that the mob. I think the more leftists in this nation take that as an insult, but when you're the party of Antifa and when you have stuff like that, I think that mob sometimes is an earned term, but I can see why more liberal, I guess, sides of the media find it offensive. It's not a compliment in any way.
Now, what do you think about the use of, a lot of people are saying, well, then the Tea Party was a mob if you're going to call these guys a mob. What do you think about that argument?
I think the Tea Party was opposite of a mob. The Tea Party was like a secret society. I mean, all the Tea Party did was like interject a couple of candidates. The Tea Party didn't
there
really
was a lot of
protest.
protesting during the healthcare vote.
Well, yeah, okay. There was, but I think that the leftist is a lot more. You see a lot more mob-like behavior from the left, whether that's bad or whether that's good. A lot of people might say they're exercising the American right of protest. We have the right to assembly, and we have the freedom of speech. I think that the left, ever since 1960, has been better at taking it to the streets. So people who would have called the Tea Party a mob, I guess I'm not totally against that, but I can see why the far left is more mob-like than the far right, if that makes sense.
Right. We're going to look at a clip now of President Trump talking about this mob-like phenomenon.
The Democrats don't like being called an angry mob, but really, that's what they've become. They've gone so far left, they can't even believe that they're over there. They don't know what's going on. When you listen to Eric Holder talking about kicking,
when they go low, we kick them.
Or Hillary Clinton saying what she said, which was so horrible.
You cannot be civil.
They just don't see it. Maxine Waters constantly, day in and day out, ranting and raving. They're losing it, and they shouldn't be. We should be a unified country. It'll happen someday.
Yeah, well, I mean, anytime Trump talks about unity,
Yeah, I mean, Maxine Waters, I don't care who you are. I mean, you can't deny, she sounds like Kirby Smart in halftime against Bama. I mean, she's motivating for something. And, I mean, when you go low, you kick them. I mean, that's the kind of stuff, those are the kind of tactics that get you labeled as a mob.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I definitely agree. So, I think Trump saying they're losing it is a great segue into some of the polls.
Okay, what do we got here?
We're going to look at some polls. First, we're going to check out the Senate. So the Senate, there's 6 toss-up seats.
We got some yellows.
Yeah, we got some yellows.
Look at Tennessee.
6 toss-up seats. 3 seats that are leaning Democrat, 5 that are likely Democrat, 14 that are solid Democrat. Republicans, 2 leaning seats, no likely seats, and 5 solid seats. Now, these numbers might be alarming, but it's important to recognize that there are 42 Republicans who are not up for election cycle in the Senate. Only 23 are not up. And it is interesting. I'm actually surprised that Tennessee is still listed as a toss-up. That Tennessee race, of course, is to replace Senator Corker, and Marsha Blackburn is running in that seat as well. And honestly, the Tennessee Senate race has been affected greatly by the Kavanaugh hearing, and so have many other Senate seats. I mean, we see Lindsey Graham, huge energy coming in. Marsha Blackburn now leading by 14 points. The New York Times has her at 54% to 40% of Brendeson. Now it is a troubling race to look at for conservatives is going to be Ted Cruz. The Texas Senate state now has Cruz the New York Times has Cruz sitting at 51%, O'Rourke at 43%, but there is a lot of energy behind O'Rourke. He was just endorsed by the Houston Chronicle, which almost always has traditionally supported Republican candidates for statewide office. So, what do you think? Is Ted Cruz losing his touch?
I don't think he's losing his touch. I think that he probably got the worst press he's ever gotten, in his life during this past election. So my theory is that he's still feeling the hangover from the last election.
Yeah.
The hate he garnered. I mean, I think Cruz is going to take the election, but I think the biggest loss for him is going to be how close it was. This is going to be the closest race of his life.
I agree. And I think a lot of it has to do with, you talk about Republican cannibalism in the primaries for the presidential run. And I mean, Trump, the guy won, but he tore down a lot of people. And
did.
and I think it's going to be interesting to see if, that stigma, Lion Ted, if that carries him into the Senate race. And there's a lot of energy, a lot of activism behind O'Rourke. So it should be interesting to see. We're going to look at the House side now. The House side, obviously, the House side is obviously a little more contentious. I still believe that the Republicans will hold the Senate.
Yeah.
The House is definitely up in the air. So in the House, there's 28 toss-up seats.
That's unreal.
Yeah, 28 toss-up seats. 15 lean Democrat, 18 lean Republican, 9 likely Democrat, 30 likely Republican, 182 solid Democrat, 153 solid Republican. An alarming number there, 182 solid Democrat. If you look at some of these seats that are obviously going to be taken, New Jersey's 2nd District is solid Democrat. It used to be held by a Republican, by Lo Biondo, and he is leaving office. He's not running again, and they're saying that seat is solid blue. There's a few others. You talk about, Illinois, Florida's definitely got a few seats. Minnesota, New Jersey has a toss-up. I mean, these are all toss-ups. And the most alarming part is when you look at these toss-ups, almost all of them are either Republicans leaving office, Republicans retiring, like Tennessee with Marsha Blackburn, who's running for Senate, who we just mentioned. Her House seat is vacated. But you also see lots of Republican incumbents. I mean, almost all these seats we're looking at right now, other than, Minnesota's 1st and Minnesota's 8th, which are both being vacated by Democrats, almost all of these seats are Republican incumbents. So it's pretty alarming.
The 30 likely Republican kind of stands out to me too, though. I mean, it almost looks like it's going to be a House divided at this point.
It is. It's going to be close.
It always looks like
Yeah, it's going to be close. The current balance, there's 193 Democrats, 235 Republicans with 7 vacancies. Obviously, you need 218 for control. So it's going to be interesting. And then the next step is, let's talk about who's going to be the speaker if the House wins or if the Republicans win or the Dems win. I mean, who do you think would be speaker of a Republican Congress?
Well, that's a tough one to talk about. I don't think it's going to be a name like Gingrich anymore, and I don't think it's going to be a name like Ryan anymore. This
Really?
isn't going to happen. But what if it was someone like Santorum? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, Rick Santorum. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. It's definitely a time where, with Paul Ryan stepping away, it's kind of, who's gonna be the speaker if the Republicans win. There's a lot of people, but I think the Republicans want to bring a fresh face.
I do too.
Well,
they tried with Ryan.
They did.
That was the original. They wanted to get away from Gingrich, who was far right.
Right.
I think it was following the trend of aisle crossing. I'll be honest with you. I think a Gingrich-like face would be better for the Republican Party at this point. Yes, I do.
Just with the way polarization is going, and
Yeah,
people
I
getting more to
think
the left, more to the right.
Of any position in the government right now, to pick a side, I don't think it could be more important than the president and the Speaker of the House. So I think that a Gingrich-like head is going to be most useful for the Republicans. What about the Democrats? What do you think would happen if they won the House?
See, I think the nation is tired of Nancy Pelosi, and I think the Democrats know that. I think, I really don't know who they'd put up. There really is, and this is positive for the Democrats. There's so many new faces. There's a record amount of women running for both parties, but for Democrats especially, a record amount of people coming into office for the first time this term. So it will be interesting to see if they come up with a real fresh face. I highly doubt they go back to Nancy Pelosi. If we go to the Senate side, majority leader wise, Cory Booker most likely going to run for president. So the Senate majority leader, if the Dems win control of the Senate, which I don't think they will at this point, but always a possibility. If they do, I think you're looking at Kamala Harris. I think you're looking at maybe Senator Sheldon Whitehouse. I really do, I hope Chuck Schumer. I mean, just for the sake of the Democrats, I hope Chuck Schumer doesn't be Senate Majority Leader. I think, yeah. I mean,
But he's an old face. I would say he's like the reciprocal Gingrich face.
He
of
is.
Democrats.
He is. But I mean, he has what.
And he has a lot of support.
Right, but he has a very dislikable face, and
Yeah.
I think, he's old, and
Maybe he's born with it.
yeah, maybe he is. We're gonna open up the phones today. The subject for today is conspiracy theories. So, ring in if you got a conspiracy theory. I think we have a few on the line already. We're gonna open it up right now. Hello, sir. How are you doing today?
I'm good. How are y'all?
Good. Thank you for calling in. What is your conspiracy theory?
So my conspiracy theory is that the government was created 75 years ago.
Okay.
What's your basis for that?
Could you elaborate?
So have you physically seen the president 75 years ago?
Well, it's about when he was born, so I don't follow.
Just when he was president, did you see him?
Did we see the president 75 years? We weren't alive
Yeah.
75 years ago.
Exactly. So did someone that was 75, do you think they saw the president?
What about the
75 years ago?
Constitution?
Oh. So the Constitution's a made-up thing. It was probably created, I'd say, around 50 years ago.
But it's been on display for much longer than that.
Is this the whole
Yeah.
last Thursday theory?
Did you see it on display before 30 years ago?
No, but other
So
people
how
have.
can you prove to me that it
Oh,
was
good
there
Lord.
more than 30 years ago?
Would you say your name was your Mark, right?
I'm Mark, yeah.
So, Mark, have you ever heard of last Thursdayism? It seems like you're venturing into those waters.
I'm not.
It's last Thursdayism is the belief that everything just restarted last Thursday. So history
That
only
sounds
lasts
really familiar.
till last Thursday. But your thoughts make it seem like history has continued for much longer.
Yes, I want you to go ahead and disprove that.
So
Well, I can't disprove that, but I can give you something to disprove. Next time you're at the gas station paying for your gas in all quarters and dimes, look on the ground, look around
Yeah.
you, and see the aging of things. See the cracks on the sidewalk, the age of people, the difference. And I think you'll understand that time's hard to argue against.
So how do you know that those cracks weren't there whenever the concrete was laid?
so Mark, another
So
question.
did you watch the concrete be laid?
Mark,
I wish I would have.
Mark, how do you account for things like the Capitol building and the White House that have been well documented as being built far, far before this, 75-year cutoff you're talking about?
I'm just not going to believe I mean, you go ahead and prove to me that the White House is older than 75 years.
It is. It is.
How can you prove that?
It's documented. There's pictures of it. I mean, it's
Oh, there's pictures of it. And who put the dates on those pictures?
good Lord.
He's got a point.
This is wild. All right, Mark, thank you for calling in. It's been a pleasure.
Oh, absolutely. Anytime.
On to the next caller now. Hello, sir. What is your name?
Hi, sir. I'm TC.
TC, like the two letters?
Like the two letters.
TC. Okay. All right.
And what's your conspiracy theory, TC?
Well, sir, I truly do not believe that we ever went to the moon.
Okay.
This is a classic.
Yeah, I can play.
Yeah,
with
this
it.
is a classic.
I can play.
What's your rationale?
This ball's in the court.
Well, when was the last time we've been back to the moon is my first question for you.
We're gonna get that for you here.
and we're
soon.
gonna pull it up. Keep going with your argument.
All right, well, focusing on, the first time we went to the moon, I truly believe,
You just said we went to the moon.
Yeah.
no, the first time, quote-unquote, we went to the moon, quote-unquote.
Okay.
All right?
All right.
Because, listen, during the time, it was the Cold War. We, the United States, and the Soviet Union were kind of having a little battle with each other, basically saying who's better.
Right.
So we wanted to develop a space, program. So
Yeah.
we claimed we went to the moon to prove to the Soviet Union that we are superior in space travel. Yet,
Okay.
I do not-
Yeah.
yeah,
I get what
think
you're
it's a
saying.
fraud.
Like, yeah, you're saying
I
like
believe it's a fraud.
So
9 holes we were shaving strokes. I've heard this.
So TC, to answer your earlier question, the last time we've been to the moon was
Allegedly.
Yeah, December 14th, 2013.
And is there pictures? Is there photographs?
Yeah. There's photographs.
Who took those photographs?
The astronauts on the moon.
And who the astronauts work for?
Oh, good lord.
Yeah, that's another good question. Yeah, you're kind of taking us down a wormhole here, no pun intended.
Yeah, just saying here.
Let me ask
just saying
something.
here. Depending on how much you trust your government, I don't know how much I trust these photographs.
Well, I mean, the government might only be
United
75
States
years old.
is known for its movie production. We do have the best movie production in the world, in my opinion. And
So-
we could fake anything.
So you think it came out of Hollywood?
I do think it came out of Hollywood.
Listen here, TC, I got a question. So, is there any reason for you to believe that we didn't go to the moon? Or just, like, is there... I understand you think that it's possible we didn't, but is there anything that, like, stands out that is a counter example as to why we didn't go to the moon? Or is it just kind of like, I'm going to be divergent?
We didn't go to the moon?
Yeah.
Well, again, I think it was just us trying to prove to the Soviet Union that we're
Okay,
superior.
all right.
Other than
TC,
that,
Well,
I
TC,
just don't believe it.
one more question. Do you think the International Space Station exists?
Nowadays, I believe it exists.
Okay.
Currently, I believe we have the technology.
Yeah, I
Right.
mean...
But back when we went to the moon, or quote unquote went to the moon, I do not think we had that technology.
Well, there might not even be a moon. I mean, the Earth is flat.
We didn't even have cell phones at that point.
We did not have
How
cell phones.
the hell could we go to the moon?
I have no idea.
You don't need a cell phone to go to the moon, TC.
Yeah, but how can you send a rocket to the moon if you don't know how to make a simple technological device?
Well, you mix hydrogen and oxygen in these big metal things and put some people
Yeah,
on
I
top
think
of
the
it.
idea of rocket thrusting to an inanimate object in space is probably easier than making a cellular device.
Yeah. well, thank you,
That's
TC.
that's the
That's all.
reaction we want.
Yeah, that's all the time we have
TC,
for
we
you.
love you.
Fraud. It's
Yeah.
fraud. The government's fraud.
All right, there we
All
go.
right, call in anytime,
And
TC.
we cut him off. Sorry about that, everyone.
Yeah, so those were the only two we could do today. I'm sorry we couldn't do more. Honestly, I would have done 202 of them.
Yeah, not a lot of whack jobs
Yeah.
out there. Though.
No, yeah, we're running out. But that's basically our show. We hope you enjoyed it. This is our first show. So, I mean, I hope all the multitudes of all you listeners out there right now, I hope you're impressed. But next week, we're going to want you to tune in because we have a great show, and Hunt knows all about it.
Yeah, we do. We have an absolutely amazing show teed up for next week. We have a huge guest coming on via video chat. We're going to have Congressman Jack Kingston. Jack Kingston served in Congress for 22 years, 11 terms for Georgia's 1st District. He was on House leadership for a while. He then moved into the private sector, where he works as a lobbyist for Squire Patton and Boggs, which is a global law firm in D.C. He also is a CNN political commentator, so you've probably seen him on CNN arguing with Don Lemon. And he's also a senior advisor for the Trump campaign. I mean, this guy's resume is a mile long. He's the man. He's the real deal. And we're going to be talking to him about midterms, the Kavanaugh hearings, and some of the fallout from that. And I mean, just anything under the sun. We're going to be using our time wisely with him, and it'll be a great show, so you have to tune in.
Yeah, just 3 equally famous guys talking about government.
Right, of course. 3 equally qualified people.
So that's one reason. That's just one of the many reasons y'all should tune in.
All right, guys. Well, thanks for joining us. We'll see you back here next week. Have a nice one. Stay safe out there.
God bless America.
Headed down south to the land of the pines. I'm thumbing my way to North Carolina, staring up the road and pray to God I see headlights. I made it down the coast in 17 hours, picking me a bouquet of dogwood flowers, and I'm hoping for